Thank you for staying with us. This is Good Morning Kenya. My name is Vivian Ndegwa, and we do get into our next session right here on Good Morning Kenya. And our discussion on our transformative leaders is closing the gap on youth employability skills. Closing the gap on youth employability skills. And joining me for this conversation is Mr. Philip Pandey. Mr. Philip Pandey is the Executive Director, Corporate Career Academy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Vivian, and a very good morning to our viewers. Good morning, East Africa. Good morning, Africa. And good morning to young people seeking skills to sharpen their capacity to deliver in the marketplace.
And speaking about that, let's just jump straight into it. And what skills do you feel are really needed or are demanded in the job market as we speak right now?
Very well, Vivian. Corporate Career Academy in our practice is driven by evidence and best practice everywhere across the world, and we depend highly on data and statistics to inform our work. So we are responding to a gap that has been established by the Inter-University Council for East Africa, a gap that was established by the World Bank Enterprise Survey, a gap that has been established by the Federation of Kenyan Employers, and many other recent studies showing that whereas institutions in higher learning, in TVET and out-of-school initiatives are providing technical skills, there is still a gap on the soft skills, interpersonal skills, basics like time management and honoring schedules, honoring appointments, and workplace ethics. And that's why we mainstream very fundamental things to do with people skills, to do with mental health, to do with transitioning and ensuring that you fit into the job market. So really, the big question is on the soft skills.
And when we're speaking about soft skills, maybe for someone who's watching us right now and they don't really know exactly what some of these soft skills are, if you can just mention a few. I know you've mentioned some as you were replying to that.
Yes.
Just mention some of the soft skills.
I would begin by saying that you could be trained in any area and you excel in those areas as a professional, but you must know how to work in a team, for example. So teamwork is part of that soft skill that we're looking for. Communication skills, interpersonal relationships, time management, showing up for a team, leadership skills, responsibility taking, initiative taking, decision making, critical thinking. Those are some of the very soft skills that employers are looking for, and employers today are not looking for people that can just solve the technical problems. They're also looking at people that they can work with for posterity in transitioning and in supporting the organizations to grow, to scale to the next level, to innovate. And we are not just talking about technology in terms of innovation, but we are talking about social innovations. How are you able to create for communities if you cannot immerse yourself in a small community or a small team of 5 people, 10 people, and sometimes you have large organizations with 5,000 individuals. Some go as much as 10,000 or even 30,000. Imagine working for a county government like the Nairobi City County. You are talking about a huge. How do you gel between one department and the next, and how do you ensure that cross-cutting issues are mainstream in our work, and we are able to build one indivisible workforce, and that's the big issue.
Yeah, and what role exactly do soft skills play when it comes to youth employability? The general role of it in that?
Soft skills are quite fundamental and critical in service delivery, in coping with the workplace, and in supporting a company to grow or an institution to meet their obligations, objectives. Recent studies show that, for example, people that are very smart and excel in their bookwork, the first-class sort of individuals, do not really excel in teamwork, do not excel in interpersonal relationships, because they are focused probably on excellence per se, but without integrating that in the overall framework of work and minding their environment. And you'll see such a huge shift in how Ivy League universities are providing their scholarships today. They are no longer looking for the A students, but they're going back to young people as young as 14 years and to work with them for the next 4 years. When they turn 18 and graduate from high schools, then they can pick them. In that process, what they're doing is that they're preparing them for the next level through leadership development, imparting these very soft skills that we're talking about, but also mainstreaming the overall need to gel with a team, to work in a community, and to mind humanity before, you know, individual brilliance and personal excellence. So it is known world over that you really need to develop and sharpen your skills. We are talking about working on yourselves. And that's why organizations, for example, organize for team buildings every other time. Why are we doing team building? To gel your community of the labor force or the workforce, to ensure that you know, the workplace frustrations can be addressed in a different way, to ensure that really everybody has a good health, people mind their wellness, people mind their communities, and people talk to each other. Sometimes at workplace we talk at each other. We give instructions, we issue commands, and we, you know, really obey a chain of command rather than giving people space to innovate, to interact with the next level of management and to senior management, for example. In team building exercises, everybody reduces to the same level. The CEO and you know, the entry level employee, even the cleaner, would be involved in the same tasks. And that then shows you that there is really need to work on an all-round labor force or workforce, people that can relate to the presidency, people that can relate to the community, and people that can relate to the street families out there. How do you treat, for example, your colleagues and your team? How do you treat junior colleagues, for that matter, because that's where we have the challenge, and mainstreaming ethics at workplace, because that's very critical. So at the summit, in the East African Employability Summit, which we are coming to tomorrow and Wednesday, some of the things that we'll be talking about is ethics at workplace, and how are universities and colleges able to train ethically to ensure that we slay the dragon on corruption that is really stifling our economic growth, that is wasting a lot of public resources, and now even the private sector and the development of the third sector is suffering from wastage from you know, individual mistakes, or inclining towards amassing wealth than building communities or developing an economy.
All right. And I still want to stick on the soft skills, because you say that these ones are really, really important when it comes to employability, you know, of the youth in the country. So how do we ensure that these soft skills are learned and they are taught effectively?
Well, there are universities and institutions that have, for example, embedded critical thinking in their curriculum. There are those that have embedded leadership development in their curriculum. And so mainstreaming soft skills in training and in higher education, then we ensure that our graduates or people that we are transiting to the market are able to learn these skills way in advance and mainstream them. Outside that, we've worked closely with LinkedIn, especially their lead on higher education, or working with the learning institutions in Africa and Asia, to get some of the resources online that then inform how we are learning these things. And they'll tell you that they have endless resources that somebody could learn online on LinkedIn, for example, to develop their soft skills or workplace demanded or on-demand work skills. The other thing is we have programs. For example, Corporate Career Academy runs what we're calling the Emerge Global Program. The Emerge Global Program is particularly working with student leaders or students with responsibilities, either in the governing council, as class representatives, as club leaders. And we ensure that we train them all as career ambassadors. When they're career ambassadors, then they mainstream these soft skills amongst their colleagues within the universities and the institutions to ensure that they can acclimatize way in advance and be ready for the job market. Other than the Emerge Global Program, we have what we call support to offices of career services. Ideally, there is need to have offices of career services in all institutions, but studies show us that they are the least funded. For example, in our institutions, you'll find the Office of the Dean of Students, for example, well structured in TVETs in universities, but they have support for sports, entertainment, support for sometimes counseling services, but nobody emphatically talks about career development, career choices, career progression, career advancement, and dealing with challenges within the career space. And so what we are doing is we are entrenching the role of offices of career services in institutions. We've helped some of institutions in Kenya to establish ground up, and there are about 18 institutions so far. Last year, when we organized the first East African Employability Summit and we interacting with the Ministry of Education, they did request us that this is also necessary for the basic education institutions as we talk about transitioning from the 844 to the competency-based curriculum. And so we are also working with the basic institutions in primary and high schools. The process of installing new offices of career services then demand that we train identified teachers who are either acting in the roles of directors of studies, working as career advisors, working as students advisors. And what we do is we immerse them through a course for about 14 weeks. A compressed version would go about 5 weeks. We graduate them. We give them a tool, an AI-powered tool that would help them to assess students in 11 areas, for example, on their learning styles, on their emotional intelligence, on their career awareness and readiness, on their perceptions on careers, and generally to help them have an integrated platform to help them make well-informed choices in around over 20 career clusters and over 3,000 occupations. And so that is proving to make the difference in our institutions and also help students transition. You could be studying, for example, a course like economics and sociology, which I did in my undergraduates. And somebody would ask the question, where then do I go to? And so with this kind of a tool then would give you many alternatives. You could work in government, you could work in the development space, you could work in the private sector, but which specific occupations? And those are the things that for example, that we are responding to.
And it's clear that career counseling, because what you were explaining, I feel is that's the term for it, right? It's career counseling, where you're counseled on ways to go about your career. You know, where do you fit best and how do you go about it? So career counseling is obviously fundamental, and its effectiveness could be seen, you know. It can easily be seen. There's a difference between someone who's gone through career counseling and someone who probably is just trying to find their foot on their own. So when exactly do you feel this should be introduced? When should it start, the career counseling?
Vivian, as early as possible. And we are today encouraging parents and teachers supporting learners in grade 5, for example, to begin talking about careers. I'll give you a good example. If you have a young one in grade 2 or grade 3, already they have portfolios or files, as we'd call them. And one of the things that they're asked to do is to pin pictures of what they would want to be. If they are doctors, they want to be doctors, nurses, lawyers. So something related to that. So they have the toys or the toolkits for the medical field, for different fields that they stick on their portfolios. What informs that? Is it the stories that we tell at home? at dinner time in our families? Is it the motivation that we see in our uncles, aunties, and friends? Or is it something that is informed by the learning style of the learner, that is informed by the capacities, academic capacities, and the inclination on learning? Fundamentally, it's very important for students that are going to be selecting or choosing their pathways from grade 6 as they also transition to junior secondary. We know that today we're going to have like about 3 specific areas. You have the STEM, you have the arts, you have social sciences. And how do you determine who is going to go into these 3 branches, or the pathways as we call them? It must be informed by science, data, and evidence. And that's why we've integrated our processes with AI. And that's why we are training teachers that handle these students. That's why we are giving, for example, institutions like a primary school or a secondary school, a platform that they can use themselves to assess the students, produce a report about 25 pages, interpret that report to the learner and the parent, and help them now journey from that point onwards. As somebody goes into high school, then the other thing that they're talking about is subject choices. How do you settle on the subjects? Is it because you scored an A in the subject? You could be scoring because you are strong in that area, but it's not your interest. Your personality, for example, is far different from what your academics look like. And so integrating all that then would give somebody a potential area where they grow to. The next level is as people choose courses. Normally, at the end of Form 4, everybody wants to go to the university. Some want to go to the TVET. But how do you arrive on that course? It must also be informed by evidence. And then from that level is transitioning from campus to career, which is the jargon that we are dealing with. So despite all the other issues on qualifications and soft skills that we've talked about, is where is an individual best suited to work based on what they've gone through and what they intend to achieve in terms of personal goals, in terms of inclination, in terms of values, and also in terms of the openings that we have in this space. We've talked about AI and the shift in the workplace. People want to work remotely. Which are these jobs that we can do remotely? People want to work from home, and which are those employers that allow that flexibility. The other thing is, as AI is said to be taking jobs, there are new jobs that are regenerated every day. So as a career advisor in school, what courses are you telling your students to take? Are they those that are going to be taken away by AI, or are they those new that are going to be regenerated in the process of innovation and technology? And Kenya is a frontier country in technology and innovation. East Africa is following suit. Africa is innovating. How are we able to entrench skills and transition in the aspect of technology, innovation, and social innovation in workplaces?
I get that. And I really like the bit where you said, you know, you may be strong in maybe some subjects, you know, that you're taking, but in real sense, it does not go with your personality. You know, I kind of related because while I was in primary school, just a bit of a story, I wanted to become a doctor. But then I realized I can't even stand the sight of blood. So there's no way. There's no way I was going to get into that field. So I absolutely get the need for that career counseling. And I really hope that we can have more of that, and more schools to also get to have those kind of teachers who are trained for that in that specific area, so that they are able to also guide the pupils or students in that. Now, when we talk about unemployment in this country, it is quite evident that there are a lot of unemployed youths out here, and there are people who are actually qualified. So there are graduates who are out here, you know, with no work. They say that kutafuta kazi siku hizi imekuwa kazi yenyewe. It's a job, looking for a job. So, and there are also people who are well skilled but have no employment. So how do we go about averting that situation? How do we close that gap whereby individuals who are well trained have at least, you know, that leverage of them getting into the job market?
Vivian, maybe we begin from the macro to the micro. Kenyan context is not an isolated case. It's existing within the overall situation and context on the African and the global South demographic shifts. Evidence show that by 2100, in about just 74 years, Africa youth population would be twice the population of the entire Europe. By 2050, we are going to be generating at least 1/3 of the entire global workforce. Europe's population is going to shrink even further to -21. Asia's population is going to shrink further, but our population as a continent on the youth alone is going to grow to double what I've just demonstrated. The Africa Union 2063 agenda at the actual 2063, when we are supposed to have realized all these aspirations, we are going to be talking about a billion-strong population of the youth that are actively seeking opportunities in the marketplace. And so, in that overall context, we are looking at younger countries, like in the Eastern Africa, we have Uganda, we have Kenya, we have Somalia, which are fundamentally younger than the entire continent. And so the hit on the demographic shift and the youth bulge is intense on countries like Kenya, Uganda, and the East Africa community. And that's why we are focusing on the Employability Summit for the East African community. For the second year running, for the third year, next year, we are likely to go to Arusha. Today, we having a soft launch towards that tomorrow and Wednesday. And Africa Union is going to launch what we are calling the 1 million next level. It's not a new thing, but something that has been ongoing since 2019 as a signature project by the current chair, His Excellency Musa Faki.
What is it about?
So this is about finding opportunities for the youth in 4 areas that we're calling 4 E's. Education, employment, entrepreneurship, and engagement. And the other thing is health and well-being. So how do we find the skills, how do we find the opportunities, and how do we ensure that the youth are able to benefit from these opportunities? As we launch that in Nairobi tomorrow by the AU and the Ministry of Labor, we are targeting, the African Union is targeting 300 million young people on the continent. And Kenya is a fundamental part of that 300 million. We are saying that we have a population of 80% strong young people. East Africa has over 300 million strong young people looking for the opportunity in this space. How are we able to integrate and ensure that, within the entire context of the East African population that has exceeded 300 million, how are we able to ensure that the Kenyan young people are able to benefit from this opportunity, the Ugandans, the Tanzanians, the South Sudanese, and the entire ecosystem? Why East Africa is very important to us is we are talking about regional integration, but what informs the regional integration? We've gone to the extent of having a common higher education framework, mobility of skills, and having cross-border skills or borderless skills. So I could work anywhere across East Africa. We are pushing our population to go to the Gulf, for example. Have we exhausted opportunities back at home? I'm not saying that opportunities in the Gulf and Europe and across the world should not be extended to us, but where the modalities to begin cleaning the house from the inside than the outside. And the inside is deal with the Kenyan employment ecosystem, deal with the East African opportunities, actualize the regional integration based on skills, based on the higher education common area, based on the common market, which requires the common skills through the common demographic that have demonstrated that we all share on the youth bulge. We all share on the need to provide meaningful employment, meaningful education, and transformative education that is going to impart the 21st century skills that we need to transit to the marketplace.
And still on skills, maybe just how important are digital skills in the present day and the job market right now?
Fundamental.
Yeah.
And you can't wish them away. Today we are working with a team of over 200 volunteers towards the second annual East African Employability Summit. And I'll tell you that all of them have been working remotely, except about less than 10 that have been coming to the office. Now, you are not able to do this if you are not on the digital space, and the digital space would ensure that you have internet, you have a device that you can use like a mobile phone, a laptop, a computer to collaborate with people elsewhere. It would also ensure, revolve around your skills, your tech skills, for example. Today we are talking about digital jobs in the digital transformation. The president in Kenya has established the ministry for, other than ICT, he has the digital economy. Why do we have a state department on digital economy? Because the reality is there is a transformation towards the digital space and digital skills. So it's important for everybody already at the workplace and that is the labor force, to learn some digital skills and be able to acclimatize within the entire shift in the economy and how we complete tasks today. I could sit at home as a government official, but I'm making approvals on the IFMIS, which is one of the critical infrastructure that we have in this country. How is that possible without the enabling the digital ecosystem and infrastructure? We've talked about connectivity of internet and ensuring that even our marketplaces, and we've talked about connecting mama mbogas and the border spaces and so forth. It's critical that everybody is able to leverage on the digital space or the digital skills to conduct their affairs, but also to ensure that they tap on the resources that are available digitally and remotely. Yes. Today you could sit here and you're working for a European company that you've never met. You're working for a US company, people that you've never met in person, but you met them virtually through LinkedIn, through Facebook and social media. So again, young people must leverage social media and the digital space to connect meaningfully, to find work, to apply for those jobs, and relate with people that can engage them, even on a part-time, to deliver those tasks.
All right. Yeah. Okay, as we get to wind up on this conversation, maybe you can just tell us a bit about the summit that is happening tomorrow. Who exactly is involved and where will it be taking place? Very
well. Thank you, Vivian. So for the second year running, Corporate Career Academy has been organizing the East African Employability Summit. Our key theme is this year building on the gains from last year, from what stakeholders have done to close the employability skills gap for the youth in the East African community. We are doing this at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, the amphitheater. We'll have exhibitions, we'll have keynote speakers, we'll have panel discussions, and we'll have a variety of, a mix of conversations to help us in shifting from what we call absence or deficiency of employability skills to imparting those skills. How do we support offices of career services? How do we reform our curriculum to conform? And how do we ensure that the young people are able to transit? We are happy to be doing this together with the Ministry of Labor, specifically the State Department for Labor and Skills Development. We are in partnership with the East Africa Business Council. We are in partnership for the first time with the African Union, whom I've told you are going to launch the 1 million next level. We are in partnership with the KCB Foundation and many other people that have helped us through this, including the Ajira digital skills, or the people that are working the digital space, and many other benefactors and partners that have worked with us on this. We have invited the institutions of higher learning, we have invited TVETs, and we have a close relationship with the Director General, TVET Authority, the PS, TVET Education, and the entire Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Labor, and others that I've mentioned. Towards this, we are hoping to tomorrow not just launch the Africa 1 million next level, but the Ministry of Labor is going to also launch about 5 critical documents on career counseling, on access to labor markets. We are going to launch the assessment tool. One of our partners, Tectona Group, is going to launch the Wadata program, which then helps in the digital migration that we are talking about, the digital jobs, the green jobs and skills, and many others. Other than those reports and fundamental tools that we're going to launch, is that for a second time we are going to convene an inter-ministerial and stakeholders forum to get ideas and cross-pollinate those ideas with people coming from Uganda across the East African community to help us towards supporting the common higher education space, but again on the mobility, regional integration for the African continent, and of livelihoods for the young people.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for the conversation. We appreciate the work that you're doing.
And I appreciate KBC for this opportunity.
Okay, this is where we end this particular conversation, where we were talking about closing the gap on youth employability skills. I believe that you have gotten to pick a word or two from what we were discussing on. We end this right now, but don't you go too far. When we come back, Family Check is the segment that will be next.